Excellent. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Glad that everyone can make it. Everyone who's tuning in from all over the world, welcome to Denver, Colorado. It's great to have all of you. Can we give another big round of applause for all the speakers who've already spoken this morning? We learned some great things. And I have to tell you, John, I also still believe in Santa Claus. Because in the Wyckoff household on Christmas morning, when you stop believing, you stop getting. And I remember that one time when we had that talk, and I said, well, there's nothing underneath here. And Mom said, you stopped believing, so you stopped getting. So that never happened again, so I believe. So thank you for reminding me of that. You know, you look at all the different topics that people are going to be talking about this morning, and they're very upbeat, they're very positive, they're very, bring you to the next level, right? Type of conversations. And then you get to this topic that says fire yourself. And you got to wonder, why would someone bring it down, right? Why would someone bring it down and use the words negative? Because if you're a leader, okay, and if you've ever led others, you probably at some point in time have had to let somebody go. And that is not a very comfortable conversation to have. It's going to get a little more uncomfortable in a minute when I start to talk to you about how to fire yourself. Now, there's a big difference also between firing yourself, okay, and quitting. So quitting means you've stopped altogether, and you are not going in a different direction, right? That's quitting. You may have started to play guitar and then stopped and didn't pick up another instrument, never went in another direction. Firing yourself allows you to do what? Rehire yourself. Okay? Go in a different direction. Just because you've let yourself go in one area doesn't mean you cannot be going in a different direction. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And for the course of the few minutes that I get to spend with you this morning, I'm going to share with you how I fired myself 3 times, 3 different parts of my life over the last 30 years, and what that did for me as a person and what that did for me as a leader. I'm going to tell you how I fired my soul, how I fired my ego, and lastly, how I fired my essence. So the first one is how I fired my soul. You know, sometimes I feel like I've led 2 different lives, because the first half of my life I spent growing up in West Michigan, and then I moved to Colorado when I was 29 years old. Everybody from Michigan has always only knew me as a professional photographer. Where when I moved to Colorado, not a soul in Colorado knew that part of my life, and there's a reason why. So in the late 80s and early 90s, I was a professional photographer for 6 years. I worked for some of the most major publications that you would know very well. A lot of front page stories, a lot of magazines, a lot of things that you might have seen over all of those years. But the interesting thing about becoming a photographer, or the things that people would see, is they'd see the sexy part about being a photographer, right? They would say, oh, there's Luke, he's on the sidelines of the Detroit Lions, or there he is, rinkside for the Red Wings, and he's courtside, for the Pistons, and all these really cool things. Then there was the underbelly of what I was actually doing. Because for those of you who remember newspapers, now I might have to take you back in time, because we used to have newspapers, and a lot of them. You used to actually go and buy a newspaper. Let me tell you the secret behind newspapers. You buy that, 90% of you, because of the photo that's on the front page. That is one of the first things you learn about a photographer, is that you have to be the best. Whatever's on what they call above the fold, they used to call it, okay? Now it's the first picture on Google. Whatever is above the fold, that's the reason why you buy that picture, okay? And even though the great, neat photos that you would see from all the sporting events, or being backstage with Metallica and backstage with Def Leppard and doing all of this really cool concert photography, that was only making up about 5% of what I was doing. Think about what makes the front page of a newspaper. Let me bring it to you in real world terms. The top 3 stories that you're going to watch today on Fox, CNN, ABC, or NBC, when you watch those tonight, what are the top 3 stories? Are they feel good? Did they make you feel healthy? Did they make you feel good? Does it make you go, oh my gosh, I can't wait to hear more about that story? Or do you kind of shake your head and go, oh, wow, that is really sad? Well, here's a little secret to the newspaper industry. If it bleeds, it leads. And that is the harsh truth and the reality. If it is tragic, it will be on the front page of a newspaper. As a photojournalist, professional photojournalist for 6 years, that is all I photographed. 90% tragedy, 10% the fun stuff that looks fun. So if there was ever a murder or a suicide or a fatal car accident or a fire, I was the first person on scene. I was the one who captured that moment. Back in the 80s and 90s, there wasn't a CSI photographer that you see on the TV today. Those pictures were mine. Those pictures would be subpoenaed by the police and by the attorneys because I told the story of the tragedy that happened. Some people are very good at letting that stuff go. So please, hands off or hands out and shaking hands up in the air, right? To our police officers, right? Our ambulance drivers, our people that work in hospitals and emergency rooms, okay? Those people see this tragedy live every day and somehow they internalize it and still can go on in life. That wasn't me. That was not part of my soul. And so on the very last thing that I photographed in 1993 was a 6-year-old girl drowning. I remember showing up, getting in the bucket with the firemen, going out over the river, and when they found the body and they were bringing the body out of the river, I realized I was about ready to capture this mother's worst moment of her entire life, and I'm going to make national news with it. That was the last thing I ever photographed because being a photographer who was taking on that type of information was destroying my soul. So that was the first time in my life when I put that camera down that I said, I'm going to fire myself. So let me ask you the first question of the 3 I have this morning. The first one is this: is there anything that is tugging at your soul right now that you need to release, that you just need to let go of, that you need to fire yourself from this and then redirect yourself over here? Is there any part of your soul? You know, Lois this morning gave us some incredible words when she talked about the soul code. Think about how she talked and delivered about that soul code. What part of your soul do you need to release and go in a different direction? That's number 1. Number 2, I have fired myself from my ego. And being an entrepreneur and a business owner can be one of the most loneliest jobs in the world. There's sometimes things that you just can't talk about with other people. And one of the other things, and if you're a business owner and you're out there somewhere in the world and you're listening, when I say this, I'm hoping that I get a hand in the air and an amen when you hear this. And that is, you wear all the hats when you are a business owner. By the way, you also happen to be the head of finance. You happen to be the head of sales. You will be washing dishes today in the office. There's no reason why that the job of hiring people, so you're also the head of HR, firing people, also HR. You are also in charge of billing, so congratulations. Now you're in the finance world, right? Every single one of these jobs as a business owner is something that you do. You do every single part of it, right? Here's a big old clue phone for you and a big old hint. Guess what? You're not an expert at every one of those areas, right? You're just not. You're just not. But let me tell you, I thought I was. I thought I'd get up in the morning, rip off the shirt, and see a big S right here, right? Because I can do it all. I could do every single piece of that. I was 4 years into one of my ventures, one of my companies, and I get a call from our bank, here in Colorado, and that banker says, Mr. Wyckoff, you have bounced a $20,000 check. And I said, well, that's impossible. There's hundreds of thousands of dollars in that account. He goes, Mr. Wyckoff, there's nothing in that account. I said, really? That's interesting. So I said, I'll be right down to see you. So I ran a bunch of the financial reports for the last 6 months, hurried myself right down to the bank, walked in, set it all down in front of me, only to realize that I had a CFO that embezzled $300,000 from us. Now, normally, you'd start pointing fingers, right? You'd start saying, this is your fault, this is your fault, this is your fault, this is your fault. You know what Darwin Jensen, who was my scoutmaster, taught me as a young man? He said, every time you point your finger at somebody else, guess what? There's 3 fingers pointing right back at you. And so I learned in that moment that maybe that person did it, but because I wasn't reconciling the books on Friday with the bank, and he knew it, I wasn't keeping my eye on the finances the way that an entrepreneur is supposed to. At the end of the day, it was me. I'm the one who let it happen. Okay? That is a huge blow to your ego because I thought I knew everything about finance. My God, I have an MBA in finance. Aren't you supposed to know all these things in finance? No. You don't have to be an expert in every single one of those spaces. So what did I do? I'm going to give you one exercise today, just one. Here it is. Everyone take out a pencil or a pen. For those of you who used to have a pencil, they were really popular in the 70s and 80s. Let me tell you, you grab that pencil, right, and all you do is draw a line right down the center of the paper. That's all you do. Here's your one exercise from me today. On the left side, I want you to write down all the things that you love to do and you're really good at. Write them down. All the things that you love to do and that you're really, really good at. On the other side, I want you to hold that mirror up to yourself and go, what do I suck at? Okay? What is it that I'm really bad? Like I'm just not good at these things. And I want you to look at your current job description, the things that you're doing today, and I want you to hold it up against the left side of that column and the right side of that column. And I want you to ask yourself, how much of what I do every day is in the I suck column? I did that just a few months after the embezzlement. And I realized that I was taking on too much. Do any of you ever feel like you're taking on too much? Do you ever wonder if that too much happens to be in the suck column? Right? That happens to be over there. It was at that point that it was time for me to fire myself as the CEO of my company. And what did I do? I hired someone, and she is the most phenomenal CEO. And when I stepped out of the role of being the alpha and the CEO of this company, we only saw double-digit growth every year since I've left. Sometimes the entrepreneur, the founder, is not the right player for the play, and you need to replace yourself with someone who's 10 times better with you, and that's where I fired myself. Fired myself from my soul as a photographer, fired myself from my ego in my own company. The last one is the essence. So I was just getting back from Winter Park, coming back into my loft in Denver, and I had my cousin and his 2 sons out here who call me Uncle Luke, and we had just finished off some amazing mountain time. He sent the boys down to pull the bags around down front, getting ready to take them back to Denver International Airport, and we're in the hallway of my loft, and he turns around and he looks at me, and he's got tears in his eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, we just finished like the best 5 days ever. And he looks at me. I'm like, what is up with you? And he looks at me directly in the eyes and he says, you are the next to die. And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, I have been here for 4 nights and 5 days. You have drank 16 bottles of wine in the time frame that I've been here, and I think this is your reality. And I'm thinking to myself, it's not abnormal. You take a bunch of drugs in order to fall asleep at night. He goes, you are the perfect cocktail for not waking up. And I have tears in my eyes right now. It's because you're my brother and my cousin. And I'm watching you kill yourself slowly right in front of me. And I looked at him and I said, okay, I'm done. He said, what do you mean you're done? I said, I'm done with drinking. He's like, for a day? I'm like, no, forever. He goes, yeah, we'll let time wait and see on that one. 2 weeks ago on January 12th, I celebrated 5 years of sobriety. 5 years. And why do I know that, why do I call that essence? Why did I fire myself from essence? You know how you know what essence is? Pull out your credit card and look at what you spend money on every month. You want to know what the essence is of what you spend money on? That's where your heart is. Go pull it out and take a look. Because when I did the analysis, for me, it was $26,800 a year. A year in alcohol. What would you do with an extra $26,800 a year if you had that? I was able to completely fire myself from that part of my life and move in a different direction. And I remember one of the most amazing moments of realizing how important that was when 6 weeks after I became sober, I went and had lunch with one of my clients in downtown Denver. And I met him like we normally do. Like, do you remember when we used to go out for lunch? Remember when that happened, like years ago? And we met out for lunch, and I'm sitting with him, and he's saying, so Luke, what's new? And I'm like, oh man, are you ready? And I go and I tell him the whole story that I just told you. He doesn't even crack a smile. He looks at me, and he goes, Luke, I brought you here today to fire you. I said, what? Is my team doing something bad? No, Luke, I was here to fire you. You were an embarrassment when I brought you into my suite at the Pepsi Center. I could smell the alcohol in your breath in the middle of the day if I met you. That's not the type of person we'd like to do business with. And so I brought you here to let you go. And then he says, and now I'm not. Now I'm going to keep you on board because I want to see where this is going to go. One success led to another success, led to another success, knowing that firing myself from the essence of something that was such a critical part of my life, an important part of my life, is kind of what brought me to the next level. So in summary, I ask you, when it comes to your soul, is there some part of your life that you need to fire yourself and rehire yourself in a different direction? When it comes to your ego, do you think you're bigger than some other part of your life? Or do you think that you could actually move in a different direction, in a much more humble direction? And last, is that essence? Can you fire yourself from those things that are part of your life right now that are destructive, that if you turned and went in a completely different direction, you could totally make amazing changes and become a better leader, a better father, a better mother, a better uncle, a better aunt, just a better human for you and for everyone else around you. Thank you so much for having me this morning.
I appreciate you bringing this topic up because I know that when you and I were communicating on LinkedIn and all of your fans were chiming in as to what a unique topic this was, a lot of people gave it a lot of thought and asked themselves, what if I did that? What if I let go of the part of me that's not working, whether it's title or not? And what Doug was saying about lying to ourselves, and I am all the way over here now, based on what Doug said after the last 7 years. And you have helped me complete a journey about letting all that stuff that didn't work go. So as I asked Lois earlier, what do you say to the young men and the young women out there who are abusing the opportunities to have a great time and not really looking forward? What do you say to them about slowing down, focusing on what's really important in life so they might avoid having to fire themselves?
Yeah, to the younger folks, whether you're in your teenage years or you are in your early 20s, right? The first thing I want every one of those people to know is that you're not alone. You are not alone. The stress, the anxiety, the type of things that you are going through today, all of us have gone through multiple times. And you feel like you are the only one going through it. Feel free to open up, and my advice is to talk.
Yeah.
Talk to other people, talk to mentors, find other people to connect with, and open up with them about your dreams, your thoughts, all these types of things, and be authentic and honest with them, because when you ask for help, people will help you. People inherently want to help you.
I would add to that last statement, Luke, that in my work as a leadership coach and executive consultant, I find that a lot of men and women, especially at the highest levels of leadership, have a real hard time asking for help. So I appreciate you reminding everyone out there for that.
Excellent.
Appreciate it.